Hello again. Well, for most people, I suppose the abiding image of Lancashire is one which comes from watching 20-odd years of Coronation Street, which can be misleading. Because just outside Lancashire's old mill towns, you'll find some of the finest countryside you could ever wish to see, plus some good value hotels and restaurants. We've been looking at a selection in the Ribble Valley, an area for all seasons, they say, which is perhaps as well, because in March, when we arrived there, it was, to say the least, a little on the cool side. You know, the diary might say it's spring, but the trouble is the seasons can't actually read. Either that, or they refuse to play by the book. But there are days when winter gets tired and the sheer energy of spring takes over. And this is one of those days. With spring on a winning streak, the earth and the air get warmer. The snow melts and leaves the hills to make its way down to the valley. The cycle started long before anybody was around to give the place a name, when the ice and the wind carved and moulded the land. In time, man turned up and called this The waters of the Ribble Valley are famous for their fishing, and favourite with other creatures too. The ducks and drakes in the village of Downham know they're on to a good thing, and so does the local baker. This elderly sunbeam is a frequent sight in the lanes around the Gibbon Bridge Hotel in the Forest of Bowland. The car is the pride of the owner, and so, for that matter, is the hotel itself. Her name is Janet Simpson. She's not the sort to divide her time between the office and the bar. She runs the place, principally from the kitchen. And not only does she run it, she designed it. Not exactly from scratch, though. It was a barn on Dad's farm. She started out with bed and breakfast, and, like Topsy, the place just growed, with parties there day after day. The star bedroom is this one, number 13, but lucky for some. The four-poster is 2 metres square, and the bathroom, flounced and gold-plated, is as big as a council flat. That window came from a redundant church. Well, there are no prizes for guessing that number 13 is for honeymoon couples, but not exclusively. I slept here alone. Between meals, back in the kitchen, they run up a new batch of supplies for the branch of the business which started it all. Even before the bed and breakfast enterprise, Janet and her mother ran a cake stall in Blackburn Market, and they still do. So, these aren't just fancy cakes. They are the foundation stones of a country house hotel which is growing all the time. And that's something which Janet Simpson never forgets. The connoisseur of pub names will relish the one at Sladeburn. Hark to Bounty was what a visiting 19th century deer hunter exclaimed when he heard his hounds cry above all the others in the pack. They used to hold court in the pub, sheep stealing once being a common crime round here. Just up the road from Sladeburn is Parrot Head, once a remote farm. These days, people make tracks from miles around for the food. The restaurant is held in high esteem, not just in Lancashire, but in neighbouring counties too. It's the look of the meals as well as the taste which brings them in from Cheshire, Derbyshire and Yorkshire. Piped music is out. Genteel conversation is encouraged. Gentility is the watchword in this hillside retreat of chintz and tweed, beeswax polish and nouvelle cuisine, where copies of country life are as much part of the furniture as they are required reading for guest and resident alike. It's a good life, if you can get some. Is the bulk of Pendle Hill, well known in superstitious times as the haunt of witches. The innocent, eccentric old ladies who suffered torture, trial, prison and the gallows are good for a laugh these days, and for trade.
Yeah, it's difficult for some children to appreciate that those decrepit and dated old codgers they call parents ever had a childhood of their own. Equally, for some grown-ups, the past has been blanked off, as it were, by the passage of time. Well, the key to open up the past to the understanding of children and the recollection of grown-ups is in a place like this. Let's go in.
They call it a museum, but they could just as well describe it as an estate, even a village. There are 54 different dolls' houses here. It's an eye-opener for the young, not only for a sight of playthings of the past, but of a way of life recalled in miniature, a microscopic history lesson. There are some recent toys, but only a few, though they'll become historic when today's children are grown-ups. The centrepiece and stupendous little attraction is the fairground, built for fun by a Mr. Churcher, a cake decorator by trade. 10 years' work springs to life at the drop of a 10-penny coin. The inn at Whitewell. There's not a lot else to be said about Whitewell. There's not a lot more to the place than the inn, lined with superior sporting prints and a stock of superior shirts. Georgina, the landlord's daughter, sells them at 40 or 50 quid or more.
Now, this is a rare sort of extension to a traditional English pub. When did it all start?
About two years ago now. I came back from a job in Newmarket and extended an idea that my father had about having clothing here and the sort of things that he would like to find in Lancashire.
And just as rare as finding shirts on sale in the back of a pub is shirts of such quality. These are not cheap.
No, they're not, but it's the cloth that makes them expensive because I actually go out and buy quite a lot of the cloths from mills in Lancashire, which is where most of the good shirt makers actually get their cloths anyway. And it's a very fine sort of poplin, which goes through a couple of processes, which makes it almost like silk. I mean, touching that, for example, when you get it out, if you hold it up to the light, you can almost see a shine on it if you look, because it's so soft.
I suppose it's right that the outfitting department should be a cut above the average. After all, this was once the manor house. There's no escaping the sporting connection. The inn owns the fishing rights to a good piece of the river. Hunting and cricket are in the air they breathe in here, and the tools and trophies of the chase, framed and mounted, are at every turn. The end of another day. And this is a good place to spend it, with convivial company and a pint in hand. There's conversation made of gossip and jokes, mostly good, and tales which the guidebook doesn't tell about the Ribble Valley.
The Ribble Valley. And if you fancy a trip there, here's all the information you need. Just send us an A4 size stamped addressed envelope to Anything Goes, Anglia TV, Norwich NR1 3JG, and we'll let you have one of our fact packs.